Hi guys, this is a test electronics video tutorial of the FixtureDuino microcontrolled test fixture and the preferences menu and how to select options to customize this fixture to your needs. Now the way you get into preferences is you just press this scroll down button, and I'll go over all the preferences one by one. The first preference, -2, is AQL or full. This means acceptable quality level testing or full functional testing. Now with the continuity testing, you don't want to do acceptable quality level. Acceptable quality level means you're skipping some tests, and it's okay to skip them because certain quality levels, say 1 out of 100, needs to be fully tested. The rest can be partially tested. We want to fully test all of these, so keep this on full functional test. Next test down is the test pause. You can see how this test pauses each time. It cycles through slow enough so that you can view each one of the test results, and it doesn't take too long to finish. Now if we were to increase this test pause up to 1,000 milliseconds instead of 500, it would really slow it down. But you could view each test really closely. If you needed to do that, view each test really closely, that's an option for you. Another thing you can do too, I'll reset out of this, is you can cycle down to a slower speed. So you press this, it goes up. Don't get confused when it goes up. You'll go up to 1,000, then the next press will be down to 0 and 100 and 200. So let's try it at 200. You'll see at 200 it goes through the test really fast. You can't really read each test very well, but it does finish faster. So that's another option for more advanced if you want to finish testing sooner. The next test down is the power LED. And what that is a good test for you to practice on. And it also increases the brightness of this power LED, which is basically the LED that warns you that a test is in progress and power is on. With this continuity test, it's only 5 volts. It's nothing dangerous, but you don't want to interrupt this test or your test will fail and you'll have to start all over again. So you can turn this up to a higher brightness or down lower, depending on whether it hurts your eyes or if you have bright glare on it. It's kind of important you are able to watch this LED so you know not to interrupt a test in progress. Okay, the next test down is the test tones. You can turn these test tones on and off. Right now, if we do a test, you'll see that it's going pretty fast and making these annoying test tones. If you turn this test tone off, it won't be that bad. So let's just turn the test tones off, and I'll show you how it is without them. So we run a test and quiet. But you do hear the end results. So that's a pass, and if it fails you'll also hear that, but the test will be quiet. That's a failure. So that's how that works, the test tones. Let's go down to, the next one will be pass tones. This also allows you to turn your pass tones off. It's not really a great thing to do. You don't want to do that unless you really need a quiet environment, because you want to hear if your unit passed or failed, plus have this LCD prompt. The next one down is fail tones. You can also turn your fail tones on and off. Now I highly advise against turning fail tones off unless you really need to have a quiet environment, because you really want to know both from the LCD display and the tone whether your board passed or failed, or failed especially. The next one down is remote control. You can turn your remote control off. Now this remote control won't work anymore. I can't go scroll up and down or enter numbers. Turn it back on, and I can scroll up and down again. Now let's go to audio control. Audio control is a voice control. This allows you to do testing by voice. So you can, what it does is it presses this button when you say test. So you can scroll up to a test, and you can hold test probes up on here with 2 hands, and then you can just say test, and it'll do the test for you. So I can demonstrate that real quick after a few more functions I show you here. This is Bluetooth on or off. You don't have a Bluetooth module, so keep that off. This is a pause option, press any key. If it prompts you to press any key to continue, this will give you the option of whether you need to actually press any key to continue or if you just wait a few seconds. This isn't used in this test. It's used in tests where you need to verify something before you continue with a test. auto test 200 millisecond delay to start testing. That's how long it takes after you close this to start the test. It provides against switch bounce and that kind of thing. You can change that to different settings if you're having too much switch bounce. This is mostly used with different type of fixtures where we're testing by grounding a test pin rather than a switch. With this good, nice switch in this fixture here, you don't have any problems with switch bounce. So keep it at 200, that'll be good. The next one down is single test auto. Now I'm going to get back to the voice test with this. What this is when you press this button, you scroll up to a test, you press this button, it automatically completes the test. Now if you set this to 1, it'll just do one test when you press this button. So now let's set that to 1, and then let's set the voice on, audio control on. Okay, I gotta shut up after I press this on, and I'll just demonstrate how this works quietly. So we'll turn it on, and then I'll demonstrate. Test. Okay, so now I just test 4. And each time I use voice, it'll test 4 again. It's the same thing as pressing this key. So that's what that does. It's for hands-free operation. You don't want to leave it on because it'll trigger off a bunch of things you say, especially if you're talking loudly like I am, so the microphone hears me in this video. So let's turn this off. Okay, there. We turn voice off, so now we don't have to worry about that anymore. Okay, so let's go to the next button. That was the single test auto, and we can set it to test 1 or auto to continue. Now let's go to fail retest. Fail retest is this button here. What this is a smart button that detects if a unit failed. It'll retest it. So if you go through a test and it fails, it remembers that specific step failed, and pressing this button will retest that specific step. The next one down is test timer. UTs tested per day. Now if you notice when you first do a test, this thing says 616 now. Units could be tested a day at that cycle speed. Now let's just go through a cycle and then take the board out, put it back in a normal way. And you'll see every time you do this, we'll put a different board in and test this. 1,338 units could be tested per day if I continue to take the board out and replace it at that rate. So it gives you a prediction on how many boards per day you can test. Now let's go back to that. I'm going to use the remote control because it's faster to just type in the buttons. The next option would be show cycle time, which would just show each time the amount of time in seconds that it takes to test this. And the next one is you can just turn the test timer off completely. The next one is the amount of time you saved per day if you have a target for 1,000 units per day. So if I press it now, it'll say I lost 1 minute because I took a really long time in the cycle. Now let me cycle through this and I'll show you what happens when we're doing a regular cycle. So we'll take the board out, put that other board back in. And now this is 1,000 units per day. You can do that pretty slowly. So I saved 120 minutes if I was targeting 1,000 units per day. And that's 1,000 units per day at a day that's a 7.5-hour day. That considers a couple 10-minute breaks and maybe going to the bathroom once. Nobody works complete an 8-hour day. So it's a very realistic measure of what this fixture can do and what you can predict. Now if you put nothing in there, of course, it'll say UUT fail not installed. Okay, so let's scroll down to the next one down, which is 16. And test select, we have a primary and a secondary test. You want to keep it on primary. Now, if you put it on secondary, there is no secondary test. but you can go to a secondary test if you need to. This can do 2 tests. If you have a new board design, now this Gen 1, Gen 2, and Gen 3 all run on the primary test. If you have another board design that might be completely different and need a different test sequence, then you can use that test and go to the secondary test. Okay, so the next one, let's see, we were on 16, I believe. Let's go to 16. Yes, that's the primary secondary test. Let's go scroll down to the next one. And that is preferences. This is the ability to save all these preferences that you selected. So what you do to save preferences, and it saves it to EEPROM so they're there and they restore themselves after you turn power on and off. Otherwise, they're just in ROM if you don't save your preferences. So let's save preferences. Now, it makes sure that you really want to save preferences by forcing you to enter a password. The password is up, down, over, and then it'll be saved to EEPROM. So now when you turn power off and power back on again, all your preferences have been saved. Now, I don't know what I saved now, and if you end up doing the same thing, making a big mistake and saving a bunch of preferences to EEPROM, you can restore factory defaults and get out of that. So just restore factory defaults, defaults restored. Now they're only restored to ROM. In order to restore them to EEPROM, you've got to go back to preferences, save preferences, and enter your password. Now your factory defaults are saved to EEPROM, and you're back to how you received this when we first shipped it to you. Now the very last thing is your test count. This you can't change. All you can do is read it. This says that you have 404 tests that have been done. Now that's just a drop in the bucket compared to the 2 million tests this fixture is able to complete. And that 400 tests was here in the factory where we did QA testing and a bunch of analysis on your fixture to make sure it was working good. So if you run this test again, you'll see that that counter will have gone up to 405 tests. And I'll show you in a minute when this gets through the test. We'll scroll down. Actually, I'll just go to 18. And, one down from 18. It's 19, 405 now. So that's all the preference options. And you might wonder, well, hey, why do I need to learn all these? It's fine the way it came from the factory. I don't need to mess with this. Well, let me show you some tricks to how, if you're an advanced user, you can really soup up your fixture. So let's say you saw that we could do 2,000 units, but only if we were really quick in changing it almost instantaneously. So let's do 2,000 units a little easier. Say your boss says you got to get 2,000 units done today. So what you want to do is we'll scroll up. Well, first we'll reset it so we get back, and I can start you at a common place. So we'll scroll down, and we'll set test delay to 0. So we'll go all the way up to 1,000. Next one is 0. Then we'll set LED intensity a little bit higher because we're really watching this now. This is going to cycle fast. Now test tones, let's turn these guys off because at a 0 delay, these test tones are just going to rattle your ears. Okay, now let's test it. Now look at how fast that thing goes. And you still get your pass-fail results. And you can, that was 3,000 tests. If you can change it even faster, 3,800. So you can get quite a bit more testing done if you don't mind not seeing this display very accurately or watching each test. Now it still will fail the same way. You open it to do a failure, or however you want to do a failure. It's still going to fail and give you fail results, and it's still going to give you pass results. But that's a good way you can really soup up your test fixture if you're an advanced user. Now I just put a piece of paper on there. Let's see if we can get that one thing that failed. F21. It'll work fine. You don't really need to watch each individual test. So that's one of the things you can do with these options. So I'll just reset this back to normal. But you can see how much faster you can make this fixture if you want to. So if I were to save that, you would have got a fixture that went through so fast you couldn't learn it. So it's good to start with the factory defaults for learning once you're an advanced user or you are pressured to do a whole bunch of high-speed testing. Then you turn that up. So that's a good purpose for the options. The other one is troubleshooting using the voice command, setting it up for that. So there's a whole variety of reasons for using those options. You might not want to save them if you're just planning to use these options temporarily, or you can save them permanently in EEPROM. So this concludes the video demonstration of the Preferences menu and selecting your options to customize your unit to your specific needs. If you found this video informative and would like to see more videos like this, there are more available on TestElectronics.com. Thanks for watching.